Welcome to the show. IB Nation Sports Talk up and rolling on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. Hope you're having a great one. I'm Sean Stiers. He's Vince D'Addario. Young Jesse Stiers will be along in a little bit, so we'll have a little three-man overlap, and then Jesse will take over for rapid fire.
Ooh, an overlap.
Yes.
Oh, all right. I can get on board with that.
Vince is in on the overlap.
Yes.
We've got a lot to get to in today's show. We've got kind of a smattering of we in, we out. If you want to throw some we in, we out, you can throw it in the chat.
Put them in the chat.
Go to the Champions Lounge and post them there if you want. Whatever.
Whatever. That's great. Whatever.
Yeah, we've just, we're playing loose with the rules today. That's just going to kind of be the way it goes.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
It's all good.
We're just crazy that way.
Yeah. Whoa!
I'm wearing my Cleveland shirt, by the way.
Oh, that's the new Cleveland.
Well, this is actually an older model, but yeah.
Okay.
I'm hoping they can at least show up tonight against the Yankees. They haven't really shown up the first couple games of that series.
Are you a Cleveland fan because that's where Jesse lives now, or you're an anti-Yankee fan, or like what spawns the Cleveland fandom here?
I'm anti-Yankee.
Okay.
I actually, when Jesse, we did like a family, this has been 2 or 3 years ago. It might have even still been when they were the Indians, I'm thinking. It might have been the last year they were the Indians.
Gotcha.
We've gone to a few,
yeah,
games over there with them, and they were actually playing the Royals that day. But this is kind of an older school. I think this might have been kind of like 70s model, the C that they've got on this shirt. And I kind of liked it. And so I got it. But in terms of this series particular, that I lean much more Red Sox than Yankees. So I'm always going to be anti-Yankee. So it's pretty disappointing. I've heard some other people talking about it. Like, the American League in these playoffs, it's amazing. It's like the Yankees and all these small market teams, 3 from the Central, obviously, and then Baltimore was in it when they were still in it. And it's like not a lot of resistance for the Yankees in these playoffs.
Resistance is futile.
Yes. So
it's depressing.
Yeah. Jesse has kind of turned into a transplanted Cleveland
Wonder
fan.
where you were going with that one.
Yeah, but Sean Kelly, Red Sox fan. There you go.
All right. Because you told me about that deal that he got last season where it was like standing room only tickets to like every home game or something like that. It was like super cheap.
Yeah. I think that's what it was. I'll have to ask him when
something
he
like
in
that.
Here. Yeah, it was like it was kind of a out toward the outfield kind of thing. Where it was like standing room only. If I remember,
usually
they got they get partial season ticket. They didn't get them. I don't think they got them this year, and they're not getting them next year because they're saving up to pay for their nuptials.
Ah, well, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
But from what I understand, there's a chance they could be moving back west sometime soon. Again, we'll have to hit him up with that when he jumps in the show.
Don't tell me he's already quitting the new job.
No, it's not him. Fiance
got
a new job, and his the place that he's with has, like other branches in different cities and stuff like that. So I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see where the head's at. I got this secondhand.
Okay. Well, why would he tell you directly?
Yeah. He actually went to I think it was it was Game 5. In Cleveland.
Okay.
Last week. It was Saturday, and he got 5 free tickets. So they went to see the Game 5 against the Tigers for free. So it's pretty nice.
I think Jesse and I need to have a chat about money management. I'm pretty sure he's making more money than I've ever dreamed about, and he's worried about paying for a wedding. So I think we need to have a chat.
Did you have to pay for your wife's family did what they're supposed to do, right?
Correct. I believe the way it went was my parents paid for the rehearsal dinner, which was really nice.
Which is what my dad did for mine.
They paid for the open bar. Nice. And they paid for like the videographer.
Okay.
I believe that's where the payment came from my side, and then her side did the rest.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But
that was a long time ago.
Like we're paying for rehearsal dinner and doing the traditional, because that's what the groom's family is supposed to do. But I don't want to like throw people under the bus. Unfortunately, the other side's not kicking in very much. So
I hear you.
The bride and groom are responsible for the lion's share of this deal. So we're trying to help as much as possible.
I'm very nervous.
You want to, we might just crowdfund this thing if people want to help at some point. I'm sure Jesse wouldn't mind.
I'm nervous. I have 3 daughters, and I think they just all need to be nuns. I think that's where this is
going. There you go. That's the easiest way to do it. That's right.
I'll throw your graduation party from the nunnery.
Save a lot of money. Save a lot of heartache. Just all of that out the window.
Oh, I'm not looking forward to that paycheck or that bill, I should say.
Man, I bet.
We'll see how traditional we are when that rolls around.
I know. Between college and DK says weddings are expensive. You got that right, man. I think what they're going to fork over is somewhere in the ballpark of $30,000, and that's like, keeping things.
Oh yeah,
as tight as possible.
Yeah,
basically. So
I'm going to be calling in a lot of favors when that rolls around. So all the people I've made friends with over the years, that chit is getting called in at some point. We're going to have some inventive wedding venues. We're going to,
right.
Dads are we're just going to line up all the dad grills and everything. We'll just grill out. That's what we'll do.
Vince will not have a problem doing the GoFundMe every time he's got a daughter getting married. He will, he will be as active on social media as he's ever been at that point.
That's right. That's right. Hopefully Dylan's making NFL money by then. He can help pay.
There you go.
Yeah, right.
Get that NFL punter money.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you never know.
Never know.
All right. We got a lot on this show, starting with some comments from Marcus Freeman. And I thought I heard like a ghost or something blow into your house there for a
legit. I don't know what's going on upstairs. They're all supposed to be leaving right now. So
I thought it was the Blair Witch Project upstairs.
I don't know what that was. They all decided to scream at the same time.
I know.
I'll go ahead and mute myself while you talk, sir.
All right. So Marcus Freeman, he spoke with us earlier this afternoon on his Zoom call. I asked him about Jason Onye's status for this week, since Onye missed last week's game, but he was listed at number 2 on the depth chart behind Rylie Mills at defensive tackle this week. And I left the question in here because the question's probably twice as long as the answer. So you can hear what was asked and how the answer went. So here you go. Onye was listed on the depth chart earlier this week. I was curious if he's available this week, and if not, if there's any light at all you can shed on his situation.
No, it's still the same status that I previously said.
So there you go. Same status.
Same status.
That means he is out this week. What do you think?
I mean, I know that they said for personal reasons, and I have no idea what those personal reasons are. And, you hope that it's nothing tragic going on. And
right.
So I will say that up front, right?
Absolutely.
You never want to wish that on anybody. If it's school related, then it's school related, and you work your way through it and you get back on the field. You know what I mean? So that is what it is too. I don't know if it's that or not. The bottom line is, from a football perspective, Sean, they need him on the defensive line. I mean, they need the depth. They need his energy. They need what he brings to the table in the middle of the defense. They need all of it. And they were able to get away with it a little bit in the last game, because I think it was the best game that the combination of, Rylie Mills and Howard Cross together as a unit had. It's the best game they've had. So you may have not have missed Onye as much as you maybe could have, right? But from a football standpoint, man, I hope he comes back soon. And if it's this week, great. If it's next week, great. But they need to get him back ASAP.
Yeah, absolutely. Because of, just that disruptive presence he can be in the middle of the line, and the fact with those long arms, like he's blocked another field goal this year, that kind of stuff. Fortunately, they were able to get back Gabe Rubio last week, and we're actually going to save the Gabe Rubio thoughts for Marcus Freeman for rapid fire, so we'll have that. But I mean, Rubio, obviously, we talked a little about him yesterday with his disruptiveness, so that's good. But they need Jason Onye, and like you said, hopefully it's nothing, like personal family any of that
right
kind of stuff. But it just they need him back, like he's a really good football player, and they need him back for that line. Now, and like Stanford's offensive line last week, not nearly as good as Georgia Tech's offensive line this week. Yellow Jackets are going to have a lot better.
Oh, sure.
On a lot more fundamentally sound. Notre Dame was really, really able to just abuse Stanford's interior offensive line last week with Cross and Mills stepping up, and then Rubio in there as well. We'll shift it to Rylie Mills now, because he probably had his best game of the season last week.
Riley's been just a staple in the center of our defense, and I've always had a belief you have to be good up the middle if you want to be good defensively. He's actually a guy that from the time I've gotten here in 21 to now is just the improvement's been tremendous. He was a raw football player when I first got here, but had so many traits of being able to be a great football player, and he's really developed on those traits, and he's practicing performing on games at a high level, and he's doing a great job in terms of his leadership too.
I did the mute because I had a little sniffle there. I was trying to keep off the show. When you look at not just last week, but the game before that against Louisville as well, feels like Rylie Mills is starting to hit his stride a little bit, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I was hoping it would have happened, in September. Early September would have been nice, but that obviously was not the case. And I guess it's better late than never that he is hitting his stride. But I agree with you. It feels like he's building on his performances and getting better and better. And it's going to be a test this Saturday, right? I mean, it's going to be, you mentioned it. The Georgia Tech offensive line is better than the Stanford offensive line. If he can repeat or come close to the performance that he had against Stanford, against Georgia Tech, then that he's kind of turned the corner and is going to start to take off as a defensive presence on this team, right? And so he, as of last week, he is the guy that everybody hoped that he would be, by choosing to come back and not go to the NFL draft in 24. And now he needs to build on that and continue to be better. I mean, with all of the losses that they've had on defense, right, for the season, it's time. Like, you need to be the guy that steps up. You are a leader on this team for a reason. And so this is your time, man. There's no other time. Like, you're done here. This is your time, and this is how you build up your stock for the next level too. So how are you going to play for the last 6 games of the season is going to really tell a lot about who Rylie Mills is for the rest of his Notre Dame career, and then whatever NFL career he ends up having.
I mean, he came back to give himself a better chance to get to the NFL, and now
Correct.
It's time to start showing it. Now, like we've said, sometimes with defensive linemen, stats don't always tell the picture, but
we have eyes, though.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. We have eyes,
yeah.
And like we've talked about, like the grades that PFF puts out on guys, there's always some grain of salt that you have to take with them, but still, I think it gives you a nice, sort of, general picture of their play. And like when I look at their grades, it backs up what we've seen. Like going back to Texas A&M, he had an overall grade of 60.1. Next week, Northern Illinois, 61.2. Next week against Purdue, 51.9. But then it kind of starts to climb a little bit. Miami, a 67. In these last 2 games, Louisville last week, 72.6, or 2 games ago, 72.6. Stanford last week, 77.1. So again, like, I don't think you put, the number that they put out doesn't always, sort of back up what you see sometimes.
Yeah, right.
But again, just watching him play, I think it's pretty obvious that he's playing much better these last 2 games than he was at the start of the season. And like I said, starting to hit his stride, and that's what they need. And like, is it me, or when I think back to last year, wasn't it kind of around this time that it really felt like that, interior defensive, both of those guys really started to kind of start making some more plays than they were early in the season as well? I don't know why it takes this long, but it feels like both years, we've kind of started to see this from that interior defensive line.
We all wanted it to happen sooner.
Yes.
And that's a great reminder about last year. But this team was supposed to be better, in my opinion, right? I wanted him to turn it on a little bit sooner. But again,
yeah, I mean, when you get 5th and 6th year guys out there, that's what you expect.
They have absorbed numerous injuries, right, up front, and that is part of it. But at the same time, I expected Mills and Howard Cross to be better quicker. I just did. And so I'm glad that they're there now, but they need, if they're going to make any noise in the postseason, then Rylie Mills needs to be better than a high 70s grade. Wouldn't you agree with that? I mean, he's going to have to be more disruptive. I mean, he was disruptive. He's got to be more disruptive because he needs, like it or not, those two middle guys need to make up for some of the loss of production from some other places. That's just the reality of it. Whether you want to say it's, with the Benjamin Morrison, whether you want to say, the guys that they lost on the edge, whatever, they're going to have to shoulder some of that load now. And so I just need to see them continue to get better and continue to be leaders on this football team, and I'll feel better about things as we go.
Right. And when you look at Howard Cross's PFF grades, they follow the same pattern.
Yeah.
Like they were not good at the start of the season, but these last couple games you've seen an uptick. And whereas like you look back at Jordan Botelho, he started off with a 77.5 against Texas A&M, and now he only played barely half a game against Purdue, but he had an 87.5 grade in that game. And, that was, again, like when you looked at Jordan Botelho, that was the level that it appeared that he was playing. He was playing at a high level, and that grade backs that up. And like DK was saying, Javonte Jean-Baptiste was kind of late, kind of kicking it into gear last year as well. You kind of wonder, again, it was getting better against Louisville, but does a guy getting a guy like Gabe Rubio back, does some of that maybe kind of rub off on some of these guys with the way Gabe Rubio plays?
Well, absolutely. I mean, what a ball of nails or whatever they said, a bag of nails,
the rolling ball of nails.
Yeah, like let's go. I mean, that's what they need, and I think if you pair him up with Jason Onye as well, whenever he decides to come back, or not decides, whenever he's able to come back, because I don't know why he's gone. I think that you pair those two with their high energy and what they bring to the table, then that might feed, other guys are going to be able to feed off of that energy. Exactly. And that production is what I'm hoping for as well.
Exactly. So we know that Benjamin Morrison is done for the rest of the season. Unfortunately, he's going to be out. So the cornerbacks came up, and Marcus Freeman was asked who's going to play field and who's going to play boundary between Leonard Moore and Christian Gray. And you talk about another short answer.
Yeah, we feel confident that both of those guys can play field or boundary, and they can do it at a high level.
There you go.
Hey, I think Marcus Freeman had some lunch reservations someplace. Just some short answers, man.
I know. Short answers and only 8 questions asked in total today. So I don't know. It was in and out. It was very brief. I mean, do you think we just see these guys virtually play both? Like, I don't know why you'd be so secretive with who's going to play on which side.
I think it's going to be opponent dependent wherever they think that the best guy needs to be, or whether, the play translates, you know what I mean? I do think that they can both play both sides, which is, it's actually beneficial to what Al Golden and those guys want to do on the defensive side of the football. I think they do have that capability. And so I think they're going to keep it close to the vest, because I think they're going to be in different spots against different opponents. And I think that's, like I said, I think that's a nice spot to be.
I think that's probably right. And I mean, like, you look at them, like they're pretty similar just in terms of their length and size and all those different things.
So they're both really talented guys, obviously, right? And whether it's going to be, look, I think Leonard Moore is super physical. So, if a team has a tendency to run to one side or the other, whether it's field or boundary, they might put him over there. You know what I mean? Because he's willing.
And he's shown up as a tackler so far as well.
Right. Yes.
Exactly.
So, I mean, there's some different layers to why you put a guy in certain places and all of that. And I do think both of these guys give you that kind of flexibility.
I agree with all of that. Yeah. And I think that it's probably good, not to commit. And some of it might have to do with who the guy is on the other side. Do you want Christian Gray maybe shadowing a certain guy, depending on where he lines up and those kind of things? So,
I think it brings that into play as well, so.
But again, he didn't elaborate on any of that. It's just
elaborate on anything.
Play. They can both play either side. So, okay.
Based on the title of the show, and I know we're going to get to it eventually, I'm very interested to hear what he has to say about the kickers. I'm interested.
Coming soon to a theater near you.
Based on his first response before about kickers, I'm really interested.
He was actually much more detailed, probably as detailed on the kickers as he was on anything today. And I think that was the last question.
He was probably coached up a little bit, I would imagine, but I'm interested to hear what he says.
I don't know. So more on the cornerbacks first, because Notre Dame, of course, plays a lot of man coverage in the defense, about as much as really anyone in the nation. So the question is, could that change because now you have more inexperience as well as less depth going forward? So would you switch your philosophy, less man-to-man, more zone potentially?
Yeah, I think, to play man, you have to be confident in your defender's ability to play man. And we've had a lot of confidence, and we still do, in terms of what our guys can do and do it well. I think the ability to have change-ups and ability to go off of your tendencies is crucial, right? It's the ability to play man, but it doesn't always look the same. And I think those are the things that have made this defense successful. But it still starts with your guys' ability to execute man coverage, and then your ability as a coach to not always just tell the offense what you're doing.
Again, he didn't commit, but I understand why, and I get where he's going with all of this. It's essentially disguise your coverages as much as possible and still play as much man as you can. It sounds like.
Well, and again, he's probably not wanting to give away state secrets and things like that, but I do think that they can be versatile enough in the pass game to keep guys guessing, on the other side, and they are going to have to go man at times to make sure they put some pressure on the quarterback and things of that nature. And I don't think they're going to be afraid to go man, but I do think there's going to be a little bit of more thought process into it and maybe some more disguising of coverages and some different nuances that they may employ over the next few games, just based on the inexperience and things like that. But I feel like Al Golden is the type of guy. It's like, okay, we're going to plug this guy in and he's got to run our defense.
Exactly.
We saw it in year one, right?
We're not just going to change who we are on defense.
Right. We saw it in year one where Al Golden was playing Al Golden's defense, and I think some of the guys weren't really ready to play Al Golden's defense.
Very true.
And there were some issues.
But they're a lot more ready now.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think it's more plug and play now than it was. But I think that's also the expectation now as well. When you come into Notre Dame as a young guy, like, look, this is how we play defense. This is how you're going to play defense within our system. And you will have individual success, but we're going to have team success, and this is how we're going to do it. So I think that's the expectation now too. And so I think that's part of it as well. So
Leonard Moore would not have gotten on the field earlier had he not been able to play man-to-man adequately because of what you're talking about.
Right.
That's part of the admission price is you got to be able to play man-to-man in this defense because they rely on those corners on those islands quite a bit. Now, again, I think the biggest concern is just the lack of depth. Like if you need to give any of those guys a little bit of a break, if you're playing man, that's more energy exerted and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's kind of why the question came up, but it feels like they've got a lot of pretty good confidence, at least in Jordan Clark, to be able to step in there and give them some as well. And when you look at this game specifically, and really, as we've hit on before, most of the games the rest of the way, like Louisville's wide receivers were probably the best group they were going to see, on this end of the schedule. Like,
sure.
I agree. I'm not taking anything away from Georgia Tech's receivers, but Louisville's receivers are better than Georgia Tech's receivers. Louisville's guys had some success, but it feels like Notre Dame should be able to be more successful, just playing their game, playing what we've seen from them against this group and pretty much any group going forward, probably until USC at the end of the year.
Absolutely 100% fair. Yes. They're not going to get challenged from a skill standpoint again like that until USC. The challenge will be from Army and Navy about more like trickeration and state eye discipline and all of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But it won't be from a skill standpoint.
Honestly, a game like that gives you a chance probably to play a guy like Rod Hurd even more.
Sure.
Because of what's going on, combination, run game first, pass game, and stuff like that. So, okay, Vince, the kickers. Here comes the kickers.
Here we go.
Right? So Yoakam, Mitch Jeter, questionable on the injury report this week. Freeman wouldn't say today one way or another if he's, whether he'll play or whether he won't. But also in combination with this, you've got Yoakam and Marcello Diomede.
There it is.
The Irish have two kickers who have never attempted a field goal so far in their career. They both kicked extra points last week, but no field goals between the two of them. Yoakam, pretty much a kickoff guy as a freshman a couple of years ago. So Freeman was asked about the range and how that range could also potentially impact how he calls third and fourth down, like with the offense. Do you go? What do you do on third down? What do you do on fourth down? Those kind of things.
Yeah, I'm confident in Zach and Marcello, and I think they're different kickers, and where their range is might change. But again, they've done a really good job in practice, and we have a lot of confidence in putting those guys out there. Yoakam's a guy that's kicked for us before, and the range always changes based on pregame. Hey, how are we kicking today? You can do one thing really good or really bad in practice, but we got to make sure, as we get into the game, I think the confidence in terms of where that range is determined probably the closer we get to game time. And so obviously the way you call the game will always be determined based off where the line is, we say, for the kicker. And the same thing, do we decide to go for it, or do we decide to punt, do we decide to kick it? Those final decisions are really made after pregame warmups.
Okay, Vince. So there's your kicker info. What do you think about all this?
I think that he just said what every head coach would say and he's absolutely right. You always go to your special teams coach after warmups and you're like, okay, what's the range today?
Where's he at? Yeah.
And in both directions because of weather and just a myriad of
you're in a dome
things.
in this game, so it should be perfect scenario. Like if whatever the max range for these guys is, they should be able to hit it in a dome situation.
Well, and it's like it's two questions, right? It's okay. Where do you feel comfortable with him hitting, and what's the max? Yeah. You know what I mean? Because those are two different questions. Middle of the second quarter, it's what's the range, game winner, or end of half, what's the max, right? So those are all obvious questions that a head coach asks the special teams guy, and I think he's dialed into that because that's exactly what he was talking about. I don't think he really, if pressed, I'm not sure that he knows exactly what that range is, but that's not his job to know. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not even going to knock him for that. That's not his job to know. His job is to know who to talk to about
Obviously,
that.
Marty Biaggi should know. Yeah.
Right. And yes, I agree with Connor. He says, I hope the kicker's a non-factor, but you never know. Look, they may have to kick some field goals, but I don't know that it's going to be the difference in the game. And they'll be fine as long as, it's inside X, whatever that happens to be, inside 40. Probably. They're probably going to be just fine, if not a little bit further out. So the kicker situation is going to be fine. I'll be much happier when Mitch Jeter is in there because I think he's proven to be clutch, right? With his experience and what he's been able to do and kicking in SEC stadiums and all of those things. These guys have never done that before. These other two guys. And so that's my only reservation is you can be the best kicker in shorts and a t-shirt. How are you when the pressure's on? And that's a big, some guys are completely different. Some guys are better when the lights are on as opposed to at a camp or something like that. Like I've seen really, really, really good kickers kick in a game. And you're like, dang, but you see them kick in a camp and you're like, they're terrible.
Yeah. Jeter didn't have a great spring at all. Remember?
Agreed.
And we were like, man, what's the deal with this guy? But then here came game time, and he's just been banging it.
Yeah. So I don't know these other two guys well enough. One of them, and I won't even say which one it is, one of them has looked not great in practice when we see him but he's always been the number 2 guy.
Yeah.
So like there's no pressure. You're just kind of out there doing it. And it's like he misses most of his shots in practice. But, we'll see what it looks like in a game.
You would hope they've been putting him in some pressure situations.
I would hope so.
This week.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Doing some of that, whether it's like the old, let's line up for a game-winning field goal and see if he can hit it, and the team runs if if you don't, those kind of things that
100%.
they've done in the past. So
yes, 100%.
Everything's on the line, hangs in the balance. All right, so it's going to be interesting to see it. I mean, Notre Dame is favored by 11.5 going into this game. It is a neutral site game, as we've talked about. I think we're all curious to see what the stadium looks like in terms of what the split is, because like Notre Dame, Georgia Tech is a private school, so I don't know that there's probably a good amount of people in Atlanta who went to Georgia Tech, but at the same time, obviously that team that wears red is a little bit more popular down there. So curious to see what the Notre Dame show out is.
Yeah, I think it's going to
be in a big stadium like this.
It's going to be more than 50% is my guess on that one.
That's kind of what I'm thinking as well.
I'm curious. I'm looking up stadium capacity because I don't know because I know sometimes NFL stadiums are smaller just because they're, it's more amenities and wider seats and things like that.
I think it's in the 80,000 plus.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
I think so, if I'm not mistaken, because it does host it's hosted a Super Bowl before.
Okay.
I'm sure.
So it says 71,000.
71.
Mercedes-Benz, and the one on campus for Georgia Tech is 59,000. So 12,000 more.
It's only 12,000 more.
Yeah. Yep.
See, Salty, if you would just get your head out of the gutter, you wouldn't have to worry about these things. But you always, always drag it down there. Come on, man.
Just dragging us down.
Let's do some we in, we out.
All right,
Vince.
What do we got?
Let's see what we've got here. Let's start with this one. Domer Grizz. With the depth issues on defense, the offense should focus more on ball control to shorten the game and lower the number of snaps that offensive players need to be on the field. Our 2.5 cornerbacks don't need to be chasing guys for 70-plus snaps. Are we in or are we out on that?
I'm out. I am not changing the way the offense is operating. They need to build off of what they did last week. And if they do that, they're going to score every possession. So no, I'm out on that. I don't know that this offense is really built. I don't want them to just shut it down and run ball control. I don't want that. And I guarantee you, Domer, you don't want that either. If you're going to be in the post-game show, you're not going to want that either because it's not going to be pretty football. You're not going to like it, and they're not going to score enough points. So I'm out. I am very, very out on that.
I think I'm going to be out I agree in sentiment that you don't need your depleted cornerback group chasing guys for 70-plus snaps. I will be curious again to see kind of how they divvy up the snaps and what they do with Jordan Clark and that kind of thing, and what they do, with the nickel. Do we see some help in there from the nickel if Clark is maybe playing a little bit more outside? But I don't think that you can fundamentally change what you are on offense because things are going in the right direction on offense right now. They did have a couple of short touchdown drives last week against Stanford, but they also had a couple of drives that were almost 5.5 minutes long, just running the offense that they run right now. And in the meantime, if you look at Stanford's average time of possession, it was, pretty woeful. And I think that, this team starts with defense. It's an elite defense, and let them play their game.
Yeah. Yep. Completely agree with that. Because I think if they just play their game, look, Notre Dame's still going to be a run-first team and all of those things, right? And so if they play their game, they're going to possess the football. I just don't want it to be a concerted effort to slow the game down and keep the ball out of the hands.
Right.
No, we've tried that, Marcus. It doesn't work. Don't be that guy, please.
I mean, that's when Riley Leonard has struggled even more.
Exactly.
Tried that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Please stay away from that.
Yep. Let him get into that rhythm, do some of that stuff he was doing last week.
Exactly.
Another one from Domer Grizz. The NCAA closing the 12 men on the field loophole less than a week after the Ohio State game is both impressive and hilarious. Are we in or are we out?
I am so in on that comment that it's not even funny. I think it's absolutely hilarious that because of that situation that they're not doing it anymore. And I also think it's laughable that this is what the NCAA has decided to move quick on. Like this? Really?
We're going to jump on this one. Yep.
It is. It's impressive and laughable.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Completely hilarious. And, like we were talking a little bit about this yesterday. I can't believe that because of one high-profile game now in the middle of the season, you're going to change the rule as a result. You're not even going to wait until the end of the season. You're going to do it now, the next week. It's beyond hilarious that they were able to move that quickly on it.
I did see a funny joke / meme or whatever today that, and at first I thought it was real. It said, breaking news, the NCAA has passed a rule after the Oregon-Ohio State game that no longer allows offensive players to get behind defensive players to help out Ohio State because their secondary was really bad. Kind of like the soccer offsides rule. Like I thought that was actually pretty funny. They used a little bit more colorful language describing the Ohio State secondary, but I thought that was pretty funny.
Okay, so Salty wrote a book on this.
Oh boy, here we go.
Injuries on the defensive side of the ball late in the second or fourth quarter, authentic or facetious, generally are a negative for the offensive side. So defensive injuries, negative. A penalty on the player for falsifying an injury is untenable. Officials cannot determine whether the player is faking an injury or is truly injured. Rather than imposing a 10-second runoff in the absence of a timeout, which unfairly penalized the truly injured player's team, a better solution might be adding 10 seconds to the clock. Are we in or we out on that?
So this is a very wordy question, obviously.
Yes.
I think that the 10-second rule should be the way they should have the choice. The referee in this moment should have the choice whether to instill the runoff or the addition of, because whatever hurts the team, the other team breaking the rule, whatever hurts the team breaking the rule, that's what they should impose, right? So if it's the defensive team and they don't want time on the clock, then why are you imposing a 10-second runoff? That's what they want. You know what I mean?
I think that's what Salty is getting at.
Yeah, I think so too. So I think the official,
you got to find a way. Like if you're gonna, like with all these injuries, like if you're gonna go down with injury, that's fine. But they almost just need to say, look, when there's under 2 minutes, you can, whether or not it's real or not, as he said, unless the guy actually gets carted off the field. Most of these guys end up walking off the field
and then coming
on their own, and things happen.
Yeah.
But how can you actually separate, the real ones from the fake ones? I just think that when it's under 2 minutes, if your guy goes down with injury, either you burn a timeout or, what he's talking about, what you were saying, whichever affects the team that had the supposed injured player the most, you've just got to go with that.
Yeah, because I think, let's say it's the defensive team, right? Sometimes the defensive team wants more time on the clock because they want to get the ball back or whatever the case may be. And sometimes they want less time on the clock. So I don't think you can put it like as a hard, fast rule in the rule book. Like if a defensive team does this, then it's either an add or it's a subtract. I don't think you can be that definitive. I think it's in the moment decision, because we all know as we're watching a game unfold, what the defense is trying to accomplish, whether it's, hey, we need to keep more time on the clock, or we need to take it. You know what I mean? So
like, go back to the Louisville game, and I never brought this up because Notre Dame ended up winning, and there were a million other things to talk about. But if you remember, when Notre Dame had the ball the last time, and they ultimately ended up punting back to Louisville, after the first play, I believe it was, that Notre Dame ran, a Louisville player is sitting down in the middle of the field and ends up, he's down there for, however much time. It wasn't that much time. It sure appeared to be what we're talking about right now, that he was probably faking it just to stop the clock and, keep the clock from running so Louisville would have as much time as they could when they got it back.
Yeah.
But it, for whatever reason, it sure seems like it's happening a lot more this year than it has in past years.
I agree. And much more egregiously as well, I feel like.
Like the fact that Ole Miss has a reputation of it
at
this point in the season.
Right.
All right. From Bergier 23. How many years will Freeman age after this season? Has to be taking a toll. He looks like hell in pressers. This isn't really a we in or we out, but
it's a comment that I think is accurate. I mean, I think I've definitely heard, and I think it's appropriate. People, I don't want to make anybody mad, but what I'm going to say is, like, being the football coach at Notre Dame is similar to being the president of the United States. It ages you a little faster than normal life. I'll just say that now.
For sure.
Obviously,
I haven't noticed the gray hairs on his head yet, but
True.
He does. Like,
he's still pretty young.
Said before, like watching him sitting 10 feet from him in those press conferences.
Yeah.
These last few weeks, his face has a different look on it. It's got a different fix to it.
Oh,
than it used to have.
And
sure.
it will wear on you. Stress wears people out, man. There's no doubt about it. So yeah, I think that's absolutely legit. Now he looks distinguished, Sean.
This is a pretty good idea from Larry, going back to what we were just talking about. He says, don't let the supposed injured player return. Like, you could say, like if you go supposedly down with injury and you come off the field on your own volition, like you don't come off on a cart or whatever, just make a blanket rule. Like, you've got to sit out at least 2 plays or 3 plays or whatever it is.
Yeah. I think it should be an amount of time,
or
like
maybe
penalty box. You know what I mean? Something along those lines, right?
Exactly.
Maybe a minute penalty. You got to be off the field. Now, coaches are going to just send out scrubs to, oh, I'm hurt, or whatever. But look, the smart coaches are going to find ways around every rule. It's just a matter of, okay, well, we're going to put this new one in and see how long it takes people to figure out how to get around it.
Sasquatch says 2 series. I mean, I don't know. 2 might be a little bit.
That could be a whole quarter.
But you could say, you could say 1, the rest of that series, you could easily say that.
Right.
Okay, you're injured, you got to sit out for the rest of the series. So. All right, Connor Laws. Notre Dame manages to get through the rest of the season without another starter injured. We in or we out on that?
This is more of a hopeful we in. I hope that that's the case. I mean, I wish I could predict the future. I hope that's the case because they've lost way too many starters. I think 5, is what I saw. 5 starters this year. Like, I'm so in on that if we can make that happen.
I'll go in with the positive vibes because, like you said, I mean, through 6 games, look at everybody who's been lost already, and you got 6 games to go in the regular season. I'll go in, though. I'll go in.
Yes.
Durable, steady.
Yes.
They'll hold up.
Dig it.
Connor also says, in or out, Rylie Leonard has his first 300-yard passing game with the Irish this weekend.
I'm out. I don't think that he needs to, and I don't think that he will. It's possible, of course, but they're facing a secondary that's better than the one that they faced this past weekend. And even though he did it in 3 quarters, that is something that needs to be taken into account, right? He did it in 3 quarters, but he, was in the low 200s, right? So I think that's probably where he needs to be as long as he has an effective running game as well. I mean, that's obviously what you want to get out of this, right?
I'm going to go out and say he has his first 300-yard total.
There it is. I was thinking about doing the same thing. All right, good job.
Do it.
Well done, sir. Well done.
I'm out on the passing. I'll say his first 300-yard total game for Rylie Leonard this week.
Georgia Tech is the 82nd team in the country for pass defense. 223 yards a game. That sounds about right, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Nominally better than Stanford's.
Yeah, but I mean, 223 yards. If Rylie Leonard has 223 yards, in this game, and he has about 75 yards on the ground, that's a Notre Dame win. You know what I mean? So I would be okay with that.
Yep. Me too. I agree. I'm sending Jesse his link to get in the show.
Oh, here we go.
Another one from Connor. Leonard Moore gets his first interception of many in his Notre Dame career this weekend. We in, we out on that.
I'm riding the positive train here. I think it's an in because I think he's going to have lots of opportunities.
I do too.
Georgia Tech's going to be hunting for number 15.
And in fact, that kind of goes with, I'm going to skip forward and then I'll skip back because DK, I glanced at this before we started the show. DK said Leonard Moore gets picked on early and makes them pay with his first interception.
There you go.
This is
in.
This is what I'm thinking.
I like it.
Like he's going to see a lot of, like you said, he's going to see a lot of balls coming his way because he's the young guy. He's the new guy. They will try to pick on him. And kind of like Benjamin Morrison when he was a freshman. Like they kept throwing at Benjamin Morrison because Cam Hart was on the other side.
Right.
And so I think that I'm in on this. I'm going to say with just the sheer volume of balls that Leonard Moore is going to see, he'll get it.
There we go. I like it.
So let me go back to Joe. In or out, there will be more than one top 10 team that loses this weekend.
That loses?
Let's pull up the schedule.
I was going to say, I need to see the schedule, so I'm going to pull it up here as well.
I know a few of the highlight games.
So top 25. Here's our matchups, right? You've got Miami, Louisville.
Okay.
That could be, it's at Louisville too. That's a noon game. That could be a lot of fun. Clemson, Virginia is at noon. They're a top 10 team because Clemson is number 10. Let's see. Rolling. Alabama, Tennessee. 7 versus 11. And
that's one that I'm looking at. I haven't.
Tennessee.
I got to do my picks tonight. I got to get them to Brian.
Yeah, I haven't done mine either. Don't feel bad.
That's one that I'm thinking about right now.
Then you've got Arkansas, LSU. LSU is 8. And then I'm going to, I forgot. I'm in on this because Georgia plays Texas and it's 1 versus 5. So somebody's going to lose.
Okay.
No, but you know what? There's a lot of
top team. Yeah. So not necessarily an upset. It just says more than one top team that'll lose.
Oh, more than one. Dang it. All right. So one definitely is going to lose because of that game. I'm going to be in. I think 2 could lose. I'm looking hard at the Louisville Miami game. That's a big one.
Yeah.
And, Tennessee, Alabama. I think Tennessee might be able to clip Alabama because it's at Tennessee. So I think
I'll go in on it as well.
Yeah.
I'll go in on it as well. Like I said, I've got to get my picks in order tonight, but that's kind of what I'm thinking.
I do too.
It says Tennessee number 11. Otherwise there would have to. What's Alabama ranked?
7.
They're still in the top 10, right? Yeah.
7.
So if Alabama loses,
Yeah.
Okay, back to DK. We in or we out. Notre Dame's defensive line gets 4 sacks against Georgia Tech.
Wish I knew whether the Georgia Tech quarterback was going to play or not. Haynes King. If it was a no on the Haynes King, then I would be very, very in on this. I'm still contemplating being in. The problem is he's a little more shifty. So I'm splitting my vote on this one. If it's Haynes King, I'm out. If it's the other guy, I'm in.
That's the direction that I would go as well. Zach Pyron is the other guy who you're talking about. And even though he's mobile as well, he's just
not as
much not as mobile and also less experience. It's interesting. They call him the touchdown vulture because he comes in and kind of, it sounds like Stanford did with Lamson last week. Like they bring him in those goal line situations and stuff like that. Pyron scores, touchdowns. So, I mean, Georgia Tech has only given up 1 sack all season so far, and that's obviously been with Haynes King as the quarterback. So I'll go out on if it's Haynes King, but I will go in if it's Zach Pyron. Cheating a little bit, but I agree with Vince's rationale.
Yes.
In or out, Rylie Leonard has another 3-touchdown passing game.
Man, if he throws for 3 touchdowns, this game is not going to be close.
I know. That's what I was thinking.
I mean, because he's going to run for at least one.
Because someone else is going to run for a touchdown.
Yeah, he's definitely going to run for one. So I want to be in on this because I want to be super positive about everything. I'm going to be out, though. I think he gets 2. I think it might be 2 and 2. So I think he still accounts for 4.
That's kind of what I'm thinking as well. I mean, he's only done the 3 once, and he's on a roll right now. But I'll go out on the 3 touchdown passes. I still like him for 3 total touchdowns, though. At least 3 total touchdowns. Jaden Greathouse has 5+ catches. In or out on that?
I feel like that's a lot. We didn't really see him on a lot of the RPOs to my knowledge. I haven't looked at Brian's breakdown yet on the all 22 over on the message board, but
he only had 1 catch last week against Stanford.
Yeah, I'm out on that one. I think the 5 is an awful lot.
Yeah, I got to be out as well. I don't know if he's had. Let me check something here.
I don't think he's ever.
I don't think he's had a 5-touch or a 5-catch game.
Anyway. Yeah.
So far in his career. Let me see. 4. No, he did. He had 5 against Northern Illinois. He had 5 against Northern Illinois. He had 4 against Louisville. And that's it. Those are his 2 high water games for his career so far. And I think that's it. Yep, boom. That is it. We're waiting for Jesse.
Where's the kid?
Where he is. He's texted me a couple of times.
Just come on in, buddy. Come on in. You know, some of us have places to be there, Jesse Spires. You know?
The Nugs came up earlier in the show. Notre Dame's Wine and Cheese said, Vince, I got some garlic parm saucy nugs.
I wonder if the garlic parm sauce is good. I saw some back and forth about it. That seems to be the sauce that I feel like I would like the most of all the ones that are listed. I have not tried it. I think I'd be more of a dip guy than just like covered. So I don't know how I feel about the just smothered sauciness of the nugs.
Those things look really good in the commercials. And I know, like, you obviously do the saucy nugs in the podcast commercials, and that's why people are talking about it.
I think they should have sent me some saucy nugs so I could get a
seriously
coupon for some saucy nugs, you know, something.
They sent us, like, the Twisted Tea people sent us like cases of Twisted Tea last year.
None of it made it to my house.
No saucy nugs. There's a Wendy's right down the road from me, about a half mile from here.
Big Wendy's fan. My kid gets Wendy's before every Friday home game.
Really?
Yeah, that's his go-to little.
Does he go burgers or is he doing the nugs?
He's a biggie bag man, so it's both. It's both. It comes with a little burger, comes with the 4-piece nugget, and it comes with a fry and a drink. Kid, you know, he's 17. He's got the metabolism of a 17-year-old.
Yeah,
so.
That's true. Where do they? Are they off this weekend yet, or do they play?
No, they play tonight. Tomorrow night is senior night. Sean Stiers. Not sure I'm ready for that nonsense. Be honest with you. Then they're off next weekend for the bye.
So who are they playing this week for senior night?
St. Joe, the Huskies, which is weird.
I really haven't. Oh, that's right. They changed.
They did.
Is St. Joe, like, where are they this year? Are they
middle
better?
Of the pack?
They've kind of fallen off the last few years.
Middle of the pack. They're better than they were last year. They had a really good freshman class a couple years ago, and they're starting to, you know, age up a little bit. But their defense is good. Their head coach is a defensive guy, so the defense is pretty solid. The offense leaves a little something to be desired. So should be a W for the Kingsmen tomorrow night. That's the hope on senior night anyway. So it's going to be beautiful outside, though. It's going to be such a nice night.
Yeah, it's supposed to warm up a little bit, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, it is. It get cool when the sun goes down and all that, but it's not going to be rainy. It's not going to be windy. It's not going to be nasty hail, rain. You know, So I'm excited because this has been the nicest weather season that I can remember in a really long time. So I'm all for it.
Been good so far this week. DK says he wishes he was 17 again so he could eat pizza for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I would be in on that. Like, seriously. I would do that for a year if I could be 17 again for like a year. I get, like that would be awesome.
Oh, man. 17 again.
And just eat the ice cream, eat whatever.
Man.
Eat whatever comes your way.
Be awesome.
I know.
Be awesome. Well, there's one guy that's a lot closer to 17 than you and I are.
Yes, I know.
This guy.
Hello, Jesse.
Hello.
So we were talking about you at the start of the show, and I hear that there's a chance that you could be moving west sometime within the next year or so.
Man, I guess news travels fast.
You're off mic a little bit.
I guess that news travels fast.
I mean,
it would have been nice for him to hear it from his own son, but he did hear it. He did hear it
through the grapevine. There is some legitimacy to those rumors.
Okay.
You're being as expansive as Marcus Freeman with you.
Yeah, seriously. Are we talking all the way west, like in this neighborhood kind of thing, or are you allowed to say?
Probably, within a couple hours.
That's a pretty wide radius there, buddy.
So you're not allowed to say cities, or you just kind of like
until things become more definite.
Okay. That's a great story. What else were we going to ask Jesse about, Vince? It seems like there was something else that we were going to. Oh, yeah. We were talking about wedding plans and GoFundMe and all that kind of stuff.
Have you started your GoFundMe for the wedding yet?
No, I've just started a savings account every month that I just deposit like $600 a month to and don't look at it. And then I'm just letting it build up over the next 15 months or so. So my own personal GoFundMe.
When you went to the Cleveland, when you got your season tickets, the partial season tickets for baseball.
Yeah, that's right.
Last year, were they the standing room only seats? Is that how did that work?
We had this past season we had standing room, but the first season we did partial tickets. We had like actual seats up in like the 400 section.
Okay.
I remember you telling me that you guys had like these seats you would go all the time and like it was a great deal on beverages and then you would just find a seat someplace and sit down or whatever. It sounded like a great deal.
Yeah, so like that one was because basically you could go, but then, not all the seats, they didn't fill up every seat. And so by the time halfway through the game rolled around, you could just go sit wherever you want.
Heck yeah.
But we did basketball season tickets last year. Can't do that this year. We are
wedding saving.
Yeah. And the thing about the games is like getting there is one thing, but then you always get like a snack and then you're vulnerable to go to the team shop, that kind of stuff as well.
Vulnerable.
You got to work on it. You're about to be married. You're going to have kids someday, I would imagine. You need to work on this. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Work on that a little bit.
That's going to be tested this winter.
When you're single and you don't have a wedding to plan for, you don't have to worry about saying no. You just spend money, and as long as you got it. So,
or get used to hearing the word no.
Yeah, there you go.
There's that.
There you go. All right, Vince. Appreciate you jumping in tonight. Have a good one. I will.
Sounds good.
Talk with you tomorrow when we do IB Countdown.
Yeah, and I'll have a fresh cut. That's what I'm going to do.
All right.
I'll talk to you guys later.
Okay.
Great time.
See you. Jesse, are you ready for rapid fire?
Well, I was brought out of the bullpen, so let's do this.
All right. We're gonna fire it up. We're gonna get him warm with some rapid fire. So I asked Marcus Freeman today if the Irish defensive line missed the edge that Gabe Rubio gave them last week against Stanford when he missed the first 5 games due to injury. Here is Freeman's response.
I think you have a big human, a big body that really plays at a high rate, and he has a lot of velocity with the way he plays. So we absolutely missed, the presence that he brings to this defense. The thing with Gabe is he's continuously learning how to control that aggression, right? And to play with details, and he's doing a much better job at that. He's going to be a guy that continues to improve because he plays with the effort, he plays with the motor, the disruptive mindset that he has, and now he's continuing to improve on the details of the position. So he's only going to continue to get better.
So you probably didn't hear yesterday, but Al Golden a couple of days ago said that Gabe Rubio is a rolling ball of nails. That's how he plays, like a rolling ball of nails. So what do you think about what you just heard there?
Yeah, I think that Marcus Freeman sounds very appreciative to have, someone back that brings some experience, and then someone that's also going to provide some toughness, throughout some of these injuries that the Notre Dame defensive line is facing. So it's nice to get, like a fresh body almost kind of halfway through the season, considering all of the different injuries that you're facing against, along the defensive line. And the way he differs from like a freshman or a first-time player is he's been in the defense before. He knows what he's doing. So again, I think it's when someone's fresh like that, it brings a certain intensity to things, right? And I think that's what the defense was kind of missing the most in that group, is just someone to kind of provide support when they've been continuously losing, amongst the defensive line throughout the season. You finally got an addition instead of a subtraction.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with what Freeman's saying. Like, just the fact that you've got a 6'5", 316-pound body in there, which is the biggest line or biggest man that Notre Dame, has thrown on that defensive line this year. They definitely miss that. They miss his man-sized strength. They miss his man-sized body, and he gave them that. And I do feel like just sort of that edge that Al Golden was talking about, and Rylie Mills kind of talked about it as well, because Mills was saying, look, when Rubio's out there, somebody's going to get knocked on their butt. And to me, it just feels like when you watch the rest of those guys play last week, like maybe some of this edge that I'm talking about with Gabe Rubio rubbed off on Howard Cross and Rylie Mills a little bit, because they were a heck of a lot more destructive last week. And Rubio brought his own brand of destructiveness as well. So I'm really kind of excited to see how this goes, going forward with him being a part of this, and what this whole interior defensive line turns into if they can continue to elevate their play off of last week.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely going to be better, and they're going to be more versatile with Gabe Rubio back. He just adds a completely different element, like you were saying, the size and the tenacity. So it'll be a good test against Georgia Tech this weekend, considering, in all likelihood, how much Georgia Tech will want to run the ball and how effectively they can run the ball.
Yep. Again, they will have a better offensive line than what Stanford has, so it's going to be a good test for Notre Dame. But as Joshua Finn is saying, Josh Burnham played really well last week, and I think that he kind of brought some of that, with what you saw from his play, just the toughness that it took to get out there on the field, and then just, the great highlight play, swatting that ball away from Ashton Daniels and taking it, for the fumble, and just some of the other play that they had. It just they needed some of that. They gave them some juice out there last week, and they really obviously needed it at defensive end. Stymie came in and he was talking about Tony Bennett. I don't know if you saw that, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Virginia basketball coach Tony Bennett announcing that he's going to retire. He's going to make it official at a press conference tomorrow, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, Riley Leonard is on pace to set a couple of records for a Notre Dame quarterback this season. Scale of 1 to 10. What is your confidence that Leonard breaks Brandon Wimbush's record of 14 rushing touchdowns in a season?
I'm going to go with this one a solid 9 out of 10. I think that when Notre Dame gets into the red zone, Riley Leonard is their most efficient touchdown scorer, and no one's really shown the ability to stop him in the red zone. So I think they're going to continue to, keep on doing it. And I think that Riley Leonard could end up with around 15, 16. I think it's going to be close, but he's on pace to do it. And again, when he is your most efficient red zone scorer, there's nothing that you should do to kind of go away from that. So I just think he's going to continue to be the guy. So 9 out of 10 for me.
Yeah. And I mean, like when you look at, he's got 4 just in the last 3 games, and he's got 7 going back to the Purdue game when he scored 3 against him. This is a 10 out of 10 for me. I think that when you look at where he is right now, I completely agree with what you're saying. And literally, it's like it almost still kind of catches you by surprise, even though it probably shouldn't by now. Once they get deep in that red zone, especially if it's first down deep in the red zone, it's just so easy for him. All he needs is that one seam, and the next thing you know, he's in the end zone on that quarterback power. So he's the touchdown record. I think that to me, he is all but a lock to get this year. The other one, scale of 1 to 10, your confidence that Leonard breaks Tony Rice's single season rushing record of 884 yards. And again, this is for a Notre Dame quarterback. Tony Rice with the record, 884 yards. Your confidence Leonard will get that one.
This one again for me is almost a 10 out of 10. I'm going to go 9 out of 10. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's just close to like
447 yards he has right now.
100 yards right now, like 480. Does that sound right?
447.
So he's literally because they played 6 games so far, so they're at the halfway point. So he's like tracking right at halfway right now. I think that he's going to have more opportunities to run the ball going forward. And it seems like him and Jeremiah Love are going to be the guys getting the most carries. So I'm going to go. I'll even say a 10 on this one. I think he's going to just get into the 900s.
I'm going to go a 9. Like I said, I'm more confident on the touchdowns. I'm going to go 9 on this, even though he's well on pace. He's more than halfway there right now, but sometimes you just never know with flow of the game and those kind of things. Like if maybe, he ends up close, but he misses it by like 20 yards or something like that. I mean, if they keep running this offense, well, let's think 50 yards a game would get him 300 yards, right? So like 60 yards per game would get him 360. So he still has to have it's still a fairly healthy pace that he has to be on to get it. So I'll go 9 out of 10 though on this one. I'm still pretty confident, but I'm more confident that he gets the touchdowns than the yardage. So final question on this. Do you see it at all as a bad thing if he breaks either one of these records? Because I've seen this kind of discussed like as a pejorative that, because he's a quarterback and these are rushing records for a quarterback. Like, do you see this at all as a bad thing?
No, I don't see how this could be a bad thing at all, as long as he is producing, overall yards, whether that's rushing or passing, and producing overall touchdowns, whether that's rushing or passing. I have no bias against how he does it. And I wouldn't feel any indifferent about it. It's a part of his game. And as long as they're effectively moving the ball and winning games, that's really all that matters to me.
I know. It just feels like there's this stigma still, like that because he's a quarterback, like if you're not throwing for the, 300 yards a game and it's 2024, like people aren't going to be satisfied with it. Again, all those yards count in Notre Dame's favor. All those touchdowns he scores count in Notre Dame's favor. It doesn't matter if he's throwing them or running them or handing the ball off to somebody else and letting them run it in. It wasn't a bad thing when old Johnny Football ran for over 1,400 yards. It wasn't a bad thing when Jaden Daniels ran for over 1,100 last year. So I don't get, why people would still be thinking this is a bad thing. If it helps the offense, which it does, it's only a good thing. And, Tom says, I went in more comfortable throwing the ball downfield. I mean, again, we've seen a continuation of that the last couple of games. To me, his comfort level in throwing the ball downfield, like his ability to run the ball and run the ball when he needs to is still part of that. I think that that's part of his juice, that he needs that in part to make him go. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that his throwing game ultimately is a confidence with how he is kind of, being kind of the orchestrator of the game and the offense. If he can get into his legs and get comfortable and get settled in and feel like he has, firm control of the game, or the game is in his hands, I do think that the passing naturally builds off of that. So, it's kind of a back and forth. As he starts hitting some passes and as he starts running the ball more effectively, I think he's like that game NBA Jam where guys kind of like catch on fire, or like NFL Blitz when you could catch on fire. Riley Leonard catches on fire as the game goes on, as he makes big runs, as he starts to make completions. And then I think you'll see some of those like fireballs, downfield once teams are kind of caught sleeping, because he has lulled them in with his running ability.
Yeah, exactly. And he is not going to, be seeing some of the greatest defenses either, especially passing defenses here coming down the stretch. Georgia Tech's team pass efficiency defense is 105th in the nation. That is only 14 spots higher than Stanford's pass efficiency defense was last week. So like, when you look at this matchup this weekend, and there's like, I just think that he's going to have a really, like, Navy in a couple of weeks is number 53 right now, which is solid. Interesting that Michigan and Georgia rank 63 and 64 in pass efficiency defense. USC though ranks 71st, so the defenses he's going to face, Virginia ranks 87th in pass efficiency defense. So I think that he's going to have some opportunities to continue to look better in the passing game. But again, I think that his running game and kind of how his game feeds off that still needs to be a big part of it. So this one comes from the Champions Lounge. It is from I Am Tenzin. I am, son of a Aang and all that stuff. It's about the situation last week when Notre Dame was winning a lopsided game with the reserves in the game and still throwing the ball and trying to score in the fourth quarter. So the question is it running up the score when you let your reserves actually play the game and run the offense, or should you just waste time by kneeling down? What do you think?
No, I think that you have earned the right to do whatever you want in that situation by putting yourself in a lead, to have ultimately the decision to put in your backups. So, the backups have to develop as well. They've practiced all week. It's their turn to, essentially run the show. And I don't think there should be any limitations to what's in your playbook, both offensively and defensively. I think it should be ran just like the ones in there were in there, and exactly, what you would be trying to accomplish if the game was still close, essentially, right? Like the backups don't want to get in there and just go hand the ball off and run the ball a million times. Like the quarterbacks want to throw it. They want to, score some points and move the ball downfield. And then vice versa on defense, like you can still get into your blitz schemes and your pressure schemes and that sort of stuff as well. Because again, if God forbid, and something happens and someone gets hurt and you have to step in, you're not just going to be running this vanilla playbook, like I guess some of these people would like you to. You're expected to, do exactly what the first strings should be able to do. So I think you should be able to practice that as well when given the opportunity.
So Tom says, I can't believe people are still talking about this. I did mean to. I saw this earlier in the week and I had it on my list and I kept forgetting to slip it into rapid fire. So that's why it's in there right now. I would have talked about it earlier in the week, but like Joe says, a few Notre Dame fans were complaining and trying to equate it with what Miami did in Jerry Faust's last game, forgetting that Miami left the starters in. That was the issue. Yes, that's the point. There's a big difference between your starters still throwing the ball and, doing that kind of stuff downfield when it's, as opposed to the number two guys. And it's obvious that Notre Dame had the number two guys in there. And, look, if Stanford or Purdue or, whoever in these situations wants to keep their starters in, it's definitely fair game. But, both coaches know you've got your number 2s in there and some number 3s in there as well. Like the coach on the other side understands that, I think, because if he was in the same situation, he'd be wanting to do the same thing. I mean, it's how you help develop your program. It's how the program continues to grow. Those are the reps. Those are the real game reps that those guys get, the only real game reps those guys get. So there's a huge difference between the starters staying in the game and you're still throwing the ball downfield and trying to score versus the reserves in there doing the same thing. That's developmental time for those guys. It's like in a basketball game. Should you just stand there and hold the ball and let the shot clock wind down every time if you're winning a blowout, or do you let your bench players who don't get to play very much actually go out there and try to score? Of course you let them go out there and try to score. That's the opportunities that they get. So, Jess, if you could pick one classic game to go back in time and watch in person, what would that game be?
So I had a couple finalists. I had the Red Sox and Yankees Game 7 from when the Red Sox were down 3-0 in the ALCS. I forget what year that was.
04.
Probably potentially when the Cubs Game 7 against the then Indians to win the World Series. I thought about Muhammad Ali and Frazier, a boxing match. That would be pretty fun.
There goes Frazier.
And then the last one would be the 2006 Rose Bowl between USC and Texas. Vince Young, USC. That was like just a not David and Goliath, just kind of like two, I don't know, just like back and forth. Number 1 versus number 2. USC had won, I think, like 34 straight games. They were the defending 2-time champs. So it was just a great game, and watching USC lose, I'll never forget. I remember watching Vince Young run in that touchdown in the corner of the end zone. For some reason, I always kind of can remember that play. So I think that's the game I'd ultimately go with out of my list of 4 there.
I knew you'd have a long list. I was wondering how long the list would be. You didn't disappoint. Those are all some really excellent choices there. Josh Baffo, the motivational business banker, says the 93 Notre Dame Florida State game, hands down. That would be a great one. I would say Notre Dame Miami 1988. Like that would be the first one I think that I would want to go to. Catholics versus convicts, like Joe Allen is saying there, just like everything, all the buildup to that game, and Notre Dame and Miami, in the heat of that rivalry coming out of those years that was just being referenced with Jimmy Johnson and Miami running it up on Notre Dame. I would love to go back and be able to go to that 88 Notre Dame Miami game at Notre Dame Stadium. Baseball, there's a couple. I would go Game 6 of the 1986 World Series. That was the Bill Buckner, Mookie Wilson game. When the Mets came back, it looked like the Red Sox were about to lock up the World Series, but they didn't do it, and the Mets ended up winning on that ground ball that got through Bill Buckner's legs. One of the all-time classic moments in World Series baseball history. I would also say Game 4 of that same ALCS that you were talking about, the one that started the comeback for the Red Sox against the Yankees, when Kevin Millar walks, Dave Roberts gets on, he steals second base, scores on Billy Miller's single to tie the game. They go extra innings. It ends up being a marathon, and then Ortiz wins it in extra innings. So those would be my top 2 right there. Or I guess that would be my top 3. Those would be the 3 that I would go with. A lot of boxing that I like to. There's like so much. Like Hearns Hagler, that would be kind of the peak boxing for me.
Another one I considered was the Mario Chalmers KU basketball championship win. That would be a fun one to revisit.
I think that one. And I might even go the 88 Kansas championship when they beat Oklahoma and Mookie Blaylock in the national championship game. Did you know that Pearl Jam? Did you know that Pearl Jam was called Mookie Blaylock before they changed their name to Pearl Jam?
I did not know that.
Yep, because they were such Mookie Blaylock fans basically, and their album 10 was also an ode to Mookie because he wore number 10.
I didn't know these things.
Now you know. I mean, you probably don't listen to very much Pearl Jam, but that's okay. Okay, a couple others here tonight. Which receiver will make the bigger impact after being traded this week? Amari Cooper to Buffalo, Davante Adams to the Jets.
I think this one is simple. I think that Davante Adams might have, a little bit more talent, but I think Amari Cooper is going to a better team and an organization that's in better shape right now. And I think that Buffalo needs someone like Amari Cooper to kind of help out, offensively. And I think that Josh Allen isn't going to shy away, from throwing him the ball. And also with the Jets, Davante Adams still has, the younger and more, supple Garrett Wilson to contend with as well than Breece Hall in the backfield. So, I think that Amari Cooper is going to do more for his team, essentially.
I think so as well. Like they've been needing, after losing Diggs in the offseason, they've been needing a real number one type receiver. Larry says Amari Dropper. I think he'll be more locked in now that, he's got a real quarterback to throw him the ball. That's what that offense need. They needed some kind of receiver. He's only 30 years old, so he's starting to get there a little bit peak, but I think that he can give them a lot. We were talking about earlier this week with Davante Adams going to the Jets. I just see more drama coming there. I agree with what Joe says. Rodgers is mid. He's mid at best, I think, right now, where he is in his career. Like he couldn't connect with Garrett Wilson enough. Garrett Wilson's supposed to be one of the best young receivers in the game right now. Okay, there's a connection. He and Davante Adams go back, but I just don't see it making that much impact. I think that Amari Cooper is going to have more impact in Buffalo. So final one tonight, Virginia basketball coach Tony Bennett is retiring. He is only 55 years old. How shocking is this news that Tony Bennett is calling it quits?
Is he calling it quits right now, like before the season starts, or is this his last season as a head coach?
Apparently right now, that he is effective immediately, was the reports that I saw coming out, that he is hanging it up before the season even starts.
Well, when I hear that, the first thing I think of is, what did he do wrong?
Yeah, I know, right?
What else is about to be coming out in the next couple of years? But, I do think he is young to be ultimately calling quits. He could also be trying to get out of Virginia too. Who's to say he doesn't pop up again in the next couple of years when a different head coaching gig comes up. But, I thought that Virginia and what they were and the style that they played kind of peaked a few years ago. And when they lost kind of, early in the round of the NCAA tournament, I think the next year they kind of got a little bit deeper, but I just don't think that they hit their ceiling essentially as a program. And so in that regard, I do understand it. But I think that he might be done with Virginia, but I don't think he's done quite yet as a head coach.
He's only 55. I mean, assuming that everything, that there's not some, deep, dark secret behind all of this, I would think that he's going to jump on TV and, be a really good TV commentator someplace, assuming that he actually does hang it up. I mean, the timing is obviously odd because you're just a couple of weeks from your season starting. Yeah. So to be doing it right now, there might be some health stuff. You never know. It's a very high stressed career. He's only 55 years old, but he brought unprecedented success to Virginia. Like, Virginia obviously had its moments in the Ralph Sampson days, like back in the early 80s and that kind of thing, but they went a long time before they ever had the kind of success that they had under Tony Bennett. Although I was a little surprised to see that, he won the national championship in 2019. That's the only Final Four that he ever took Virginia to, with all the success that they had. Of course, they became the first number one seed to get knocked out in the first round the year before that by UMBC, and they bounced back the next year to win it all. But that's the only Final Four that he ever led Virginia to was when he won that national championship in 2019. But a great career. You know, like you look at like him and Brian O'Connor, who of course was an assistant baseball coach at Notre Dame, who's been the head coach out there at Virginia for a long time and also won a national championship. Both of those guys like did things that nobody else was ever able to do with both of those sports out there at Virginia. So great one, Tony Bennett. Hopefully everything is good. You know, everything is on the up and up. But again, the timing is very unusual. There's a press conference for tomorrow. I guess we'll see what we find out when that happens. All right, Jess, enjoyed it as always. Good to talk to you for the second time this week. Now you're back for full shows as of next week. Is that the understanding?
Potentially.
My
Either
you are or you aren't.
Your people, we're in a contract holdout. You know.
Yes.
We'll see. You might get me. You might not.
All right. Yeah, Joe's right. He made Washington State relevant as well before he went out. I mean, and that's like when you look at Tony Bennett, that's good news for Notre Dame. You don't have to worry about that pack line defense anymore, you know, unless whoever takes over, you know, they might still be playing it or whatever, but I don't think that they can probably coach it to the level that he did. But be glad to see that pack line out of the ACC and Notre Dame have hopefully more success against Virginia. That's been a tough one to beat over the years. All right, hit that like button before you go. Don't forget, we've got IB Countdown to Kickoff coming up tomorrow. Enjoy the game this weekend, and we will talk to you later on IB Nation Sports Talk.